Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here to talk to this home and personal care conference in India. I've been here for several days, so now I'm really happy to be here to talk about how certification can provide evidence to ensure consumer trust. First of all, I will talk about a little bit about the ECOCERT group to show you and to let you know a little bit more about it. Then we will talk about market trends here in India, but also to have the comparison with the European perspective, the risk of greenwashing, and then I will talk about the guarantees given by certifications and labels, and how certification can be a trust tool towards consumer. So first of all, a few words about the ECOCERT group. So the ECOCERT group has been has been created in 1991 in France, and the objective was coming from the organic farming sector, and the objective was here to create a certification body in order to give trust towards organic farming practices. And since the beginning, the objective of the ECOCERT group is really acting for change and promote the practices that are in favor to respect people and the environment. We have been working on organic certification for more than 30 years now, and we are the leader in organic certification. During our history, we have followed two paths, I would say, becoming more international. So that's why we have created, and we wanted to follow the supply chain. So to do so, we need to be in every country where the people are working and producing the raw materials for organic farming. And also by following the supply chain, then we have diversified our activity into several sectors. So to give you an example, we have launched the first natural and organic cosmetic standard in 2002. And this was also at that time that we came into India in order to have our subsidiary ECOCERT India in 2002. Since now many years, we have also trying to develop new jobs, I would say, not only certification, because certification sometimes arrive at the end of an approach, and we have decided to go to training and consultancy to be at the first beginning steps towards sustainable practices, so that people can learn more, can be educating, and so that we can go with them and support them during this empowering sustainability. So you may know us for cosmetics, as you are here, but we are working in many sectors of activity. As an example, so our core business is organic farming certification that we are providing on a worldwide scale. And then we have other expertise. We are working on fair trade. So this is an important part also of our work, really being taking care about social and environmental aspects on specific supply chain. We know that there are many risks on some supply chain. You are facing too. We are also working on sustainable agriculture, which is another way to address some issues in some countries for the agricultural practices. We are also working on quality and food safety. For sure, on corporate social responsibility, this is one of our core expertise too, because when we talk about corporate social responsibility, then we will fix all and look at all the governance of company to look at sustainable practices. And also one of our key points for development is also to look at biodiversity and climate change, which becomes more and more an important part of our job. As you can see here, we have some business sectors. So I'm at the head of home care and personal care business unit within the ECOCERT group, but we are also working in textile as an example industry where this is one of our major activity here in India, because there are also a huge sector of textile where sustainable and environmental practices are also a key part of our job. We are certifying almost 150 labels on a worldwide scale. So you may see here the one for Cosmos, for cosmetics, but we have also for detergent, for textile, for fair trade. And also we are looking at packaging. We are certifying some packaging to be sure that we will have the whole supply chain also for the cosmetic industry. We are looking at fair trade, as I told you, with Fair for Life, which is one of our standards. And the objective is really to have a holistic approach to all the business sector to force them to go into sustainable practices. But in comparison with our competitors, we are only focused on environmental services. We are not certifying according any, just I would say, regulation or something like that. We are focused on sustainable and environmental practices. As I've mentioned before, so we have decided also to go through, to become international. And now we have almost 30 subsidiaries on the worldwide scale that allows us to operate in more than 130 countries. That means that any subsidiary within the ECOCERT group will take care of the region around. As an example, the India team, which is here today, is covering 26 countries around India also to support the certification or the training of people around the different sectors of activity, textile, cosmetics, detergent, or any other services, or food also. And another point I wanted to share with you about the ECOCERT group is our ambition. We want to act for a sustainable world by supporting the transition towards fairer economic models that preserve health, climate, and biodiversity. So this is what we stand for. And we also think that it's really important to be exemplary. So that's why we have developed a strong CSR policy where we want to both work on our own business, how are we responsible in our business with our team, how we can engage them to good work and to support the transition, and also, for sure, be part of the industry, be part of the game, to be sure and talk to politics, talk to people who will change the regulations and who will implement such practices. So this is why we really support our action. We support the transition of our clients on a worldwide scale. And just to let you know that we have our own system also of selecting the labels that we would like to develop internally or to where we would like to implement services. So we select labels in terms of robustness, in terms of level of requirements, and also in terms of communications. We are not certifying any environmental label. We really select them to be sure that it will not lead to greenwashing claims. And this is really important for us to have this, to be aligned, I would say, outside and inside, to be sure that we will be a trust partner for the industry. So now we will talk a little bit about market trends and all the risk of greenwashing. A few words about the beauty market in India that you may know. There is really an historic incentive towards a holistic beauty based on natural and local resources. What we can see when we go on the shelves that there is Ayurvedic product, herbal product, natural product, many things related, I would say, to somehow the nature. But it's also difficult to understand what's behind and which term means what. Due to the huge size of this country and many consumers also becoming middle class or upper class, it's a really fast growing market with many new brands launching products very fast and so on. But I would say it's a little bit a jungle too, if I may. And what we've seen also in the past few years is the importance of digitalization, with new brands really choosing direct-to-consumer approach. And this is also the way Indian people are consuming now, with Gen Z also really wanting to have this product right now and not to wait for it or not to try it or have any... they are following influencers or something like that. So this is really a direct consumer oriented market. And since pandemic, there is also the rise and the focus on health, as Birgit was saying, an increase of taking care about what I put on the skin and how it can be safe or not. So that's why there is also the increase of clean beauty on this market. And this, I would say that it's a major trend on the worldwide scale. It's not only India, it's really a massive trend on the worldwide scale, even if no one knows what is the real definition of clean beauty, and there is no regulation to talk about it. So everyone can say, okay, I'm clean, even if we don't know what does it mean. So when we look at this specific market with this huge potential and also this really important orientation towards nature, we see that there is, I would say, two, not contradiction, but two things that is working in using ingredients that are traditionally used and then try to make them more modern with modern formulations. So there is this combination of innovation with traditional ingredients. And this is something somehow not so easy to implement and that will perfectly fit, I would say, the Indian culture having this both innovative but also traditional cosmetic. And also with the rising of the Gen Z, I think there are new values that are coming into this market about inclusivity, self-expression, so that I will have the product that will perfectly fit my needs, my skin specificities, so that I will have something which is really personalized for me. So this is the major trend that we see in India. And on the other hand, I say that this is a market where there is a high heterogeneity, a high difference of knowledge also for formulation, and maybe in somehow some I would say quality control is not at the same level everywhere and in every company, and there is a lack of transparency really on the way the products are produced and what's behind, because there is a jungle of claims on this market too. When we talk about greenwashing, as Mark has mentioned just before, greenwashing is the practice of making an unsubstantiated claim or misleading claim about the environmental benefits of a product, of a service, or of a practices. And there are many ways, I would say, to make greenwashing. You can, as an example, present figures to one's advantage, turning into something that can be an advantage for you, or highlight small gesture, even if you are on the other side having bad practices on the environment. You can also make promise for the future, even if right now you are not doing anything. Or you can also display undemanding labels. For sure, as a group, we are trying to follow the misuse of our ECOCERT label, but as mentioned by Mark Smith, there is more and more, or we can see that there are many people using our label on the finished product only because they are using one or two ingredients that are certified or approved. And this is something really misleading, because on the product you will see an ECOCERT logo, even if we have not checked what's inside the product and if the product has followed all the certification process. So this is something we are really working on to be sure that when there is the ECOCERT logo on a product, either it's textile, a detergent, or something like that, someone, a third party, has checked that everything is okay, so that it can give guarantee at the end of the day for the end consumer. And also we see that in many regulations there could be some loopholes, and sometimes greenwashers are going into it to be sure that they will have no troubles, I would say, but to continue to do some greenwashing. Talking about the context of greenwashing, we've discussed this subject during whole week with our clients, the fact that it's so a huge problem in India to have this lack of regulation on greenwashing, and that it's really so common to have green to have some herbs on the product, to say it's Ayurvedic or herbal without any really something which is meaningful at the end of the day or really understandable by the consumer who can trust it and then buy it. But at the end of the day, it's not a sustainable product they could buy. We know that in looking at ingredients, cosmetics, sometimes the supply chain are very complex. So that's why it's also key to have a third party looking all the steps to be sure that at the end of the day, what I put on the product will be a true claim. Somehow also the Indian market is really depending to cost, and the consumer will look on cost. It's really a really important point also for this consumption market. So that's why sometimes it's easier to say it's green even if it's not green. And what we see also is that there is right now, but maybe that will change in the upcoming months, there is a limited enforcement towards these such bad practices on the market. But hopefully, I don't know if you are aware of it, there have been a draft just launched last week about the directive here in India about the guidelines to prevent greenwashing. I have just highlighted here 2 points that have been noticed in this new draft, that all environmental claims should be backed with verifiable evidence. So this is a key point. If you substantiate the claim, you will be able to have it. And also, this draft of guidelines here in India says that specific environmental claims must be supported by certification, credible certification, reliable scientific evidence, and that there will be an independent third-party verification. So this is exactly what we are talking about today, having a third party checking at what's in the product, how the product has been manufactured, to be sure that the claim is consistent. And this new guideline that will maybe become published or become a regulation in India in the upcoming months is perfectly in line with what we see on the European scale, with what has been already presented by Mark about the huge context also that we are facing in the European market, but is trying to be more and more regulated. Indeed, the regulation on the European scale, we will have at least 2 major regulations that will help the entire sector of activity to really prevent for greenwashing. And the objective also is to give the consumer the possibility to select on the proper way, with really to be really informed about their right to select the product that will be sustainable. So here on the European market, and you can see this is perfectly in line with what's inside also the guidelines for India. The objective is to really remove any environmental claim that is not substantiated. Also to give the possibility to have labels, but only the ones that are approved and that will be certified thanks to an independent third party. So this is perfectly in line, and I think this will be also an opportunity for Indian products to be accepted on other markets, thanks to the fact that they will follow the same rules about greenwashing. And to let you know that also for imported products that will have a label, they will be submitted on the European market to the same rules. If you have a label on the product, an environmental one, the European directive will also ask you to be aligned in terms of substantiation, in terms of all the certification. And so somehow that's why it will be really important to get certified here on the Indian market. So you can find all the information related to this new regulation directly on the European Union website. So now a few words about natural and organic cosmetic certification. So where does it come from? So back to the years 20s, there were a huge confusion on the European market about natural and organic claims. There were many companies having well green product, but without any substantiated behind. And consumer, and that's why it's also important to give the right consumer to choose, that consumers were asking for more transparency. And there were some really importance of consumer here to say, okay, what can I trust? I really want to be sure that the product that I am buying is really what's on the label. And there were no regulatory framework. So when we see on the product a label, indeed behind there could be many things and many level of, I would say, commitment of brand. When you have a product where you can see as, I don't know, 100% organic or 100% natural, that can be a self-declaration without any third-party checking, without any, I would say, guarantee that what's on the product. This is the first step, I would say. This is self-declaration. Sometimes it's fully true, but sometimes it can be a little bit challenged. Then the second possibility behind the logo, this is an association logo, but without any third-party verification. So you ask an association to become a member, and then you commit that you will do best practices, but no one check. So in that case, or sometimes there is participative certification, such as Nature et Progrès in France, but there is an internal checking. So you commit, but there is no check. Then we have also certification label, and this certification label, when we talk about that, we need also to, you need to know that we need to comply to an accreditation, so the 17065 accreditation, where it's really a framework, very strict framework of independence, impartiality of the certification body, and also a really competency to check all the compliance system that's behind the label. And this is exactly where we can find an A-True standard or Cosmos standard, a true certification with an external third party. And also you need to know that it requires a stakeholders consultation when we do some evolution of the standard. So it's really a service that will serve a sector of the industry, and we are accredited. That means that we are also having some audits as a certification body, so to be sure, to ensure that at the end of the day, the claim can be really, that give a really guarantee. And then the last level is the regulated one. So this is what we have for organic farming as an example. This is a voluntary regulation. So if you want to put organic on the food, you need to be, this is a regulation, you need to be certified according to the regulation. And this is also a way to have this public recognition, the support of the governments towards the development of such, I would say, best practices for organic farming as an example. And why organic has become so important in many countries is also because it was supported by the public authorities. As an example, in Europe, it was not only a private standard. At the beginning, it was a private standard, and then become a regulation. And this is really important also to be able to fund, to support farmers to move into that practices. So here, this is really, really important to have this information, this framework, because behind the logo, indeed, there can be something really different from self-declaration to fully regulated claim. And this is why, but an association label can become a regulation. So as ECOCERT, we are also pushing to have such a framework, to have this private label, if there is no regulation, in order to help the market to structure itself so that when there is a claim on a product, you can trust it. And if we look now at Cosmos, I will give you the example of Cosmos. It has been a long process with an evolutive content to also follow the technology and the development of the cosmetic industry. So as I've mentioned before, in 2002, we have developed the ECOCERT standard for natural and organic cosmetics. And then we have worked with other scheme owners on the European scale in order to build the COSMOS standard, which is a harmonized international standard for natural and organic cosmetics. So we launched it in 2011, and it was funded by 5 members, European one, Italian, German, British, and also 2 French organizations working on it. And since the beginning, we have decided as COSMOS member to ask for an accreditation in order to be sure that this standard will be credible and will have this recognition to be a strong standard where there is independence, impartiality, and competency. Since the beginning, the standard was really focused on raw material and finished product. Why? Because everything begins with raw material. So this is a really important point to have all the check on the raw material so that at the end of the day, we will have the full traceability all along the supply chain. We have implemented also since the beginning green chemistry criteria, and the objective was really to move into sustainable practices and improvement process. And that's why, so this was the first launch in 2011, and now we are at the first version of the COSMOS standard. So we are trying to push or to pull the industry into sustainable practices. And as I mentioned, so we are, as a certification body, we are accredited by authorities. In each country, we want to have this certification, and now within the COSMOS standard, there are 12 certification bodies on the worldwide scale, and each of us is accredited. And this is a really important point if we think about the certification, because it gives the guarantee that it's an independent party that is working behind. So as I've mentioned, in 2019, we were at the 3rd version, and right now on the market there are still products that are complying to this version, but we have launched the new one in 2023. So in this new version, if I can give you some words about it, we are really working on palm oil derivatives in order to be sure that now people can really purchase palm oil derivatives, which has not led to a deforestation. We are asking for more raw materials from organic farming and something like that. So it's an evolutive process where we always have the exchange with the industry to be sure that the criteria will also be affordable, because it's not the idea to have the perfect standard which is really strict without any, as an example, chemical or petrochemical inside. No, it's something that should work, that is achievable, but also demanding. So this balance between the commitments and the criteria is a key to be sure that we will change the sector, but not only with 10 or 5 best in class, but with also the entire industry. And one of the reasons also me being here and having met clients during all this week is to be sure that this can be applied not only in Europe, on the European market, but also in India or in other countries, where sometimes the maturity of the market or the availability of raw material is not exactly the same. So we need also always to, I would say, challenge ourselves to be sure that we will have a standard that is really fits with the markets and that will really improve what we can see on the conventional side. So right now, the COSMOS, according to the COSMOS standard, we have almost, I would say, 35,000 products that are certified on the worldwide scale in 70 countries. So this is really massive, I would say, development of the COSMOS standard. And when we talk about raw material, we have almost 13,000 organic raw material already certified according to the COSMOS standard, and almost 10,000 natural origin one. So, which means, and what is important here is to note that you can find raw materials that will really fit every needs to develop the product. But what we can see on the Indian market is that these raw materials are not always available here. You need to import, so that makes cost impact on the supply chain. So this is something also we are working with the ECOCERT India team to develop the raw material locally here to be sure that the company could have raw material available for themselves to develop product that will fit the needs of their market and the cost, and also be compliant to the Cosmos standard. So this is why we are also implementing here locally services to be sure that this raw material sector will also increase here in India. So why certification is a trust tool towards consumer? As I've mentioned, the cosmetic supply chain are very long. So you have the primary raw material producers. Sometimes they are organic certified, sometimes they are not, but we have this part of production, the natural and organic ingredients. Then there are traders, the raw material manufacturers, some new traders, then the manufacturer, the packaging manufacturer is also here. And at the end of the day, there is the brand owner who will sell it to retailers towards consumer. So to be sure that the consumer will understand the entire supply chain and can trust, he is only in touch with retailers or with brand owner. He's not in touch with the entire supply chain, which is sometimes private, I would say, secretly, but he must trust what's on the label because this is the only way for him to be sure that the claims are okay. So that's why it's also really important that each partner of the supply chain fulfill the compliance to requirements so that at the end of the day, the consumer can trust the brand. If a consumer see that something on the label is not true, then he will never trust this brand anymore. And a third party is here in order to check all these partners to make sure that the supply chain is really traceable. And this is where we are working on. And when we are talking about environmental claim or organic claim, this is something that happens since the beginning in organic farming regulation that we are following the supply chain. And indeed, in cosmetic supply chain, this is the same thing that we need to implement. And this is really key to ensure trust between consumer and brands, that there is this transparency and this commitment all along the supply chain. Now, a few words about Cosmos. So since the beginning, Cosmos relies on really strong guarantee about the manufacturing process, which should be environmentally friendly. As mentioned also by Mark, we are selecting ingredients that are from natural origin or from organic farming, and all of them must be non-GMO, that there is no animal testing on the finished product, that the packaging is also selected so that it's recyclable, and also that where the product has been manufactured, the company has implemented an environmental management plan. And this is also important because we are not talking just on one product, but a commitment of a brand, a commitment of a supply chain towards these requirements. Because it's easy to do just one product and that's it. But here we are talking about a full commitment towards storage and all the practices, and also to train the people that are working, the workers, to be sure that we empower them in order to implement the requirements in a proper way. Then talking about the levels of certification, I will explain it here to you. I will begin with the raw material suppliers. So there is two levels for raw materials. The first level, I would say, it's when the raw material is from natural origin, so composed only from ingredients that are from natural origin. Then you can get an approval, which means that we are checking the compliance of the ingredient on a documentary basis, but without any audit. So we only check the compliance of the ingredients through the information that the suppliers are giving to us. If for risk, thanks to risk analysis, we think that there can be a fraud. For sure, we can go there and make an audit, but it's not mandatory. And you will get the Cosmos approved level that allows you to be on our database. As I've mentioned just before, there is almost 10,000 raw materials on the database, and there is always mentioned where the producer here is or where the company in charge of this raw material is, so that it's easier also to select maybe local suppliers for raw material. Then the second level for raw material is Cosmos certified one, and this is only for raw materials with an organic content. Here, as you can see, this is not the same logo, which means that here we are doing a certification process with an audit. And this allows you and allow us to check the compliance of the raw material if we have the full traceability of the organic origin of this raw material. And then also here, the raw material after certification can be on our website into the database with a percentage of organic which is inside. These two types of raw materials can then be used in a cosmetic product. So we have two levels of certification. The first one, the Cosmos Natural, is a level of certification where we are not requiring any organic content inside. So just purchasing natural origin ingredients is enough. And you can then develop a product that will be compliant to the Cosmos Natural level of certification. For this certification, for sure, we will go to the factory, check the compliance of everything before you can use the logo. And no one can use the logo without this first documentary checking and then on-site audit. Then the Cosmos Organic, which is, I would say, the famous one, because this is the one which is used on the worldwide scale for Cosmos, has two main criteria related to the content from organic farming. We will look at all the plant ingredients, and here 95% of the plant must be from organic farming origin. So this is the first step that we will look at. And then there is another one, another percentage is 20% of the total ingredients that must be organic. Usually people are saying, okay, 20%, oh, is too small. Why are you not more? Why is it too small? And at the end of what you need to know, or what people need to know, is that there is a high content of water in many cosmetic products that cannot be organic. So that's why we look at these two percentages to be sure that all what can be from organic farming, almost all, must be from organic farming. This is the 95% of plant ingredient that must be from organic farming. In many cases, this percentage is not on the finished product because it's not mandatory, and at least it's a little bit complex for consumer, but this is one of the important parts of our standard to be sure that we will really promote the companies that really committed to use organic ingredients inside their product. And as I've mentioned, there is an annual on-site audit that is required for the Cosmos standard. Since the beginning, this is really something which is really key in our vision of what sustainability is. Indeed, there are some labels on the worldwide scale who are only checked by remote things. So remote audit, I would say, can be interesting, but it's not the same thing to have someone coming into the factory, discussing with the people, knowing how they are working, to be sure that everything is implemented on the right way, and also maybe be here to discuss and push them to improve their practices, because this is thanks to this richness of discussion between the auditor and also the company, that company sometimes are improving the way they are working. So we will do this annual audit with the manufacturer, where we will look at the ingredient supply chain, the product line, and also the storage, to be sure that there cannot be any confusion between ingredients that are for these natural organic cosmetics or natural ingredients, organic ingredients. and conventional one, because this is not mandatory to do only natural and organic cosmetics. For sure, we have many actors here, also in India, that are doing conventional cosmetics and also natural and organic one, and there is no problem as soon as there is no confusion between the two types of cosmetics. And also, and this is also an important point, that we will audit the brand owners. So this is one of the specificity of Cosmos 2, to really look after the entire supply chain, not just to be at the manufacturing step, but we will look at the brand owner. Why? Because the communication is so important that we would like to check the compliance of the communication. So we will look at the way they are using the logo, the ECOCERT logo on their website or on their leaflet, to be sure that there will be no confusion also here, no misleading claims. Because sometimes we can see that it's difficult to really be clear on what you are telling to the end consumer, or also on a B2B basis, to be sure that you will not mislead your client. So we will look at all these communication things to brand owners. Then we will also have an entire look about the purchasing and all the documentation, to be sure that the traceability requirements has been fulfilled. So to do so, we will do balance exercise. We will look at one production, look at all the ingredients inside, and then how it has been sold. And this is the way we have in order to check the compliance. This is not an exhaustive checking. What we do during audit is just take samples, or do it on a sampling way, so that we can have trust or not. And this is according our risk analysis, to be sure that we can be deliver this certification. This will be never exhaustive, but this is the way we investigate, I would say, to get the certification. And sometimes people, when they are talking about certification, they always think that we are doing analysis, physico-chemical ones. But this is not the way we are working. Sometimes it can complete investigation, but we prefer to have this holistic approach, looking at every part, so that we can then say if it's compliant or not compliant. So why promoting the cosmetic certification according to Cosmos? So this is really to bring consumer awareness and to answer to their expectation, because we see that there is expectation towards natural and organic, or I would say towards sustainable cosmetic, that are really, it's a really important point for consumer to have this such important claim. But here, the certification comes to give the trust. This is also to avoid risk of greenwashing. So right now, this is, I would say, non-mandatory way to give to prevent greenwashing. Maybe in the future, this will be the only opportunity to put an environmental claim on a finished product, to have these labels, environmental labels. So all the practices that you can implement here will maybe help you in the future to continue to be able to have this environmental claim on your product, and to really fight false environmentally friendly products. And this is also to compensate the lack of, currently, the lack of regulation for natural and organic cosmetics. So being in contract with ECOCERT for this certification is really a bond of trust. Since the beginning to the end of the certification process, you will be in contact with our teams, local teams, to be sure that they will also understand your needs and your specificity, your local specificity. And the objective is to check the compliance towards the Cosmos requirements, but also to be sure that it will be adapted to your specificities. So there will be the strict criteria that are checked both during the documentary audit and then on-site audit. And the objective is also to encourage you and also the Cosmos standard to improve itself, so that everyone is moving into more sustainable practices. And this will be also give you a really important benchmark on the product and on your raw material. If you want to go on the international, on export, this logo and our guarantee is really a trust tool that you can use, so that it can substantiate what you are claiming on the product. and I am finished. I just would like to mention here the contact of the ECOCERT India team so that you can be directly linked with them with no difference of time and something like that, like when you work with the European people. And they are already trained on all the steps of the cosmetic services so that you can directly have their expertise from here. If you have any question, I can answer it. Yeah, you may have. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Pauline. Where do you see the standard going? Where is kind of like the end game? You look to remove some things from the standard because obviously you add things, but do you look to remove things from the standard over time and refine it in iterations to more like to raise the benchmark? Because that must be quite difficult, of course, with the more products that you have, people achieve a certain criteria, and perhaps if you want to eliminate some criteria to raise the benchmark, it also creates another problem. So how do you kind of like, you know, balance, how do you run that tightrope?
Yeah, so for sure the objective is not to lower the level of the standard because the industry is really in an innovation, perpetuous innovation. So we know that if we talk about, as an example, palm, in the third version, we were just looking at only some inky ingredients. And now we know that on the market is much more available to have ingredients from palm origin with the guarantee of the zero deforestation. And it also becomes a regulation on a European scale. So we are trying to pull the industry, but this is always in discussion with all the stakeholders, raw material suppliers, and finished product also manufacturer, to be sure that we will still be affordable. And this is something which is really difficult when we talk about the worldwide scale, because the maturity of the market are not the same. So if I would just focus on the European market, maybe we would have implemented more stricter criteria, because raw material are all of them are available, and that the formulation have also, there are an expertise on formulation, natural and organic formulation. But if we took the entire picture, it's really important that we can pull every country to move into that practices. So usually, and I would say that ECOCERT has this view in the Cosmos team, to be sure that we will reflect the possibility on the worldwide scale. So this is an important point, even if we know that currently the Cosmos standard is already really difficult to achieve in some country. As I will give you an example, we are asking people to have certified olive oil if you want to use olive oil, but in some country, if we talk about Japan, it's almost impossible without having a high cost of importation of such an ingredient. So it's always this balance. But I will also give you an example specifically on India. In India, we had a problem related to having not listing on our standard the NPNP certification for organic farming, even if here it's for sure necessary, because sometimes the products are not certified according or cannot be certified according to international schemes. So after discussion and also having a deep look on the certification according to NPOP, we have decided to have it listed within the IFOAM standard that we accept, so that to be sure that it will be able, the manufacturer here in India will be able to have their own raw materials.
Thank you, Pauline. That was indeed informative. Please accept a small token of appreciation from our end.